The evening sun of the colony world was low, painting the sky in orange and purple. The land was quiet, filled with strange tall trees that looked like crystal towers. The wind moved softly through them, making a sound like a gentle song. It was beautiful, but there was also silence that felt heavy, almost sad. Daniel Walker, a human explorer, walked slowly through the valley. He was a man in his late 30s, strong but kind-looking. His mission was simple: to map this part of the colony world for future settlers. He carried a scanner on his back, and his boots left soft marks in the strange soil. But Daniel's heart was uneasy. Something did not feel right. The scanner showed signs of old damage. Burned marks on the ground, broken pieces of ships, and strange holes in the earth told a story. This place had seen battle. As Daniel moved forward, he noticed something small, near the ruins of a crashed alien ship. At first he thought it was only broken metal, but then the shape moved. It was small, weak, and trembling. Daniel stopped. His eyes widened. It was a child, not a human child, but an alien girl. She was sitting near the wreck, her clothes torn and dirty. Her skin was pale with a soft glow, her hair silver like moonlight, and her eyes large, shining with fear. She looked no older than 8 or 9 years by human standards. When she saw Daniel, she froze. Her body shook and she pressed her back against the wreck as if ready to run. Daniel raised his hand slowly, showing he carried no weapon. His voice was gentle. "Hey there. It's okay. I won't hurt you." The girl did not understand his words. Her language was different, but she could feel his tone, soft and calm. She stared at him, breathing fast, ready to scream or flee. Daniel slowly knelt down, making himself small so he would not appear threatening. He opened his bag and pulled out a piece of ration bread. He placed it on the ground between them, then pushed it closer. The girl's eyes followed the bread. She was clearly hungry. Her small hands shook as she reached for it, snatched it, and began to eat quickly. Tears filled her eyes as she chewed, like someone who had not eaten for days. Daniel's heart ached. He had seen many things as an explorer, but nothing like this. A lost alien child, alone in ruins, surviving after a terrible attack. "Poor kid," he whispered softly. "What happened to you?" The girl did not answer. She only looked at him with wide eyes, half fear, half hope. That night, Daniel made a small campfire near the wreck. He stayed a few steps away so the girl would not feel trapped. He gave her water and more food. Slowly, she began to calm down. She did not speak, but she watched him carefully, as if trying to understand what kind of being he was. Daniel thought about his choices. He could not leave her here. She would die. But taking her back would not be simple either. Humans sometimes did not trust aliens. Still, his heart gave him no choice. He had once promised himself that if he ever saw someone helpless, he would not turn away. Before sleeping, he tried speaking again. "My name is Daniel," he said slowly, pointing to himself. "Daniel." The girl tilted her head. She did not repeat the sound, but her lips moved as if testing it in silence. Daniel smiled warmly. "It's okay. Tomorrow I'll take you somewhere safe." The girl blinked, then curled up near the warmth of the fire. She did not sleep deeply. Every sound in the night made her shiver, but she kept her eyes on Daniel until she drifted off, as if watching him gave her a little safety. Morning came. Daniel led the girl through the forest toward his small ship. She walked behind him, hesitant, sometimes stopping. Every loud sound in the trees made her jump, but each time Daniel would look back and give her a smile, and she would take another step forward. When they reached the ship, she froze again. The metal, the size, the sound of the engines, it all reminded her of the wreck where she had lost everything. Her hands trembled, and she looked ready to run back into the forest. Daniel slowly walked to her and knelt. His voice was calm. "I know it's scary, but trust me. You'll be safe." She did not understand the words, but something in his eyes made her pause. After a long silence, she nodded slightly. Daniel opened the hatch and let her step inside. First, she looked around with wide eyes, touching the walls as if they were alive. For her, everything was new and strange. During the flight back, Daniel tried to learn more. He pointed at her and asked gently, "Name?" The girl only looked down. Then she whispered something in her own language, soft and melodic. Daniel could not understand, but the sound was beautiful, like music. He repeated it clumsily, and she blinked in surprise. For the first time, she almost smiled. "Lyra," Daniel said, deciding to call her that, since the sound reminded him of the constellation Lyra back on Earth. The girl tilted her head, unsure, but did not resist. "Lyra," he repeated warmly. "That's you." She placed her small hand on her chest as if accepting it. Back at the human colony base, things were not simple. Some officers looked at Daniel with concern. "You brought an alien child?" one asked. "We don't know her species. She could be dangerous." Daniel stood firm. "She's just a kid. She lost her family. If we don't help her, she'll die." After long talks, the colony leaders agreed to let the girl stay, but only under Daniel's care. She would be his responsibility. Daniel accepted without hesitation. He felt it was his duty now. Life with Lyra was not easy at first. She did not trust easily. She stayed quiet, often hiding in corners, afraid of loud voices or unfamiliar faces. But Daniel never forced her. He gave her space, food, warmth, and patience. Slowly, Lyra began to change. She learned small human words like yes, no, food, and safe. She followed Daniel more closely, no longer hiding when he was near. Sometimes, she even laughed softly when he showed her something funny. One night, as they sat under the stars, Lyra looked at Daniel for a long time. Then with a trembling voice, she spoke one clear word. "Guardian." Daniel froze, surprised. She had chosen that word herself. She saw him not just as a rescuer, but as someone she wanted to protect her. From that night on, something grew between them. A bond. Daniel was no longer only an explorer. He was now a father figure. And Lyra, the alien girl, was no longer only a survivor. She was becoming part of his world. But Daniel could not ignore what he had seen when he found her. The wreck, the scars of battle, the fear in her eyes. There was more to her past than she could yet say. And sometimes, when Lyra was alone, her hands would glow faintly with strange light. Powers she herself did not understand. Daniel did not speak of it, not yet. But deep inside he knew one thing. This child was not ordinary. And one day the world would learn just how extraordinary she truly was. The first weeks on the human colony were strange for Lyra. The alien girl had been saved from the ruins, but being safe did not mean she felt at home. Everything was new. The buildings of metal, the voices of people, the strange foods, and the machines that filled the streets. Daniel stayed with her through every step. He held her hand when crowds made her afraid. He taught her small human words every evening. He even gave her a little wooden bird carved by his own hands to help her feel she had something special of her own. "Home," Daniel said one day, pointing to their small living quarters. "This is home." Lyra repeated the word in her soft voice. Home. It sounded strange from her lips, but she tried hard to say it clearly. Daniel's smile gave her courage, and little by little she began to repeat more words. Struggles of trust. Not everyone welcomed her. Some settlers stared at her silver hair and glowing eyes with doubt. Children pointed at her, whispering. Some adults even pulled their own children away when she walked past. One man muttered, "Why did Daniel bring an alien child here? She could be dangerous." Daniel heard it, but he did not argue. He only tightened his grip on Lyra's small hand and whispered to her, "Don't worry. People fear what they don't understand. But in time they will see you as I do." Lyra understood little of his words, but she caught the kindness in his eyes. It made her want to be strong, not to run and hide. At night, though, she often woke with tears. Memories of fire, screams, and the wreck of her old world haunted her dreams. Daniel would sit near her bed until she slept again, whispering, "You're safe now. I promise." A father's choice. Weeks turned into months. Daniel officially signed the papers to adopt Lyra as his daughter. Many questioned him, but he never wavered. When asked why, he answered simply, "Because she needs family, and family is what makes us human." The word family became important to Lyra. She asked Daniel one evening, "Fa me, lie?" He smiled and pointed at her, then at himself. "Family, you and me." Her eyes glowed faintly with warmth as she touched her chest and whispered, "Family." That night she slept without waking from nightmares. Learning the human way Daniel taught Lyra human customs. She learned how to eat with utensils, how to greet people politely, and how to read simple human letters. She laughed the first time she held a pen, making messy lines on paper. "Practice," Daniel told her. "One day, you'll write your own name." "Lyra," she whispered, slowly writing the letters with shaky hands. When she finished, Daniel clapped softly. She smiled, shy but proud. She also learned human songs. Daniel had a small music player that played old Earth tunes. Lyra listened with wide eyes, swaying her head gently. Sometimes, she even hummed in, her own alien tongue, mixing it with human music. Daniel thought it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. But Lyra did not only learn, she also showed Daniel parts of her own nature. She could see in the dark better than humans. She could sense changes in the air before a storm came, and sometimes when she was upset, her hands glowed faintly with light. Daniel never forced her to explain. He only said, "One day you will understand yourself. Until then, it's nothing to fear." Facing the world outside, Daniel wanted Lyra to feel like she belonged, so he took her to the marketplace one bright morning. The air was full of voices, smells of food, and the sounds of merchants calling out. At first, Lyra clung tightly to Daniel's arm, her eyes darting nervously. But then she saw a group of children playing with a ball. They laughed and shouted, their joy filling the street. Lyra watched them with longing. Daniel noticed and asked gently, "Do you want to try?" She shook her head quickly, fear in her eyes. But one of the children noticed her and came closer. He was a boy about her age. He smiled and held out the ball. Lyra hesitated. The boy waited patiently. Finally, she reached out and touched the ball with her small hands. The boy grinned and ran back, motioning for her to join. Daniel nodded encouragingly. "Go on." Lyra stepped slowly into the game. At first, she was clumsy, not knowing the rules, but when the ball rolled toward her, she kicked it back with surprising skill. The children laughed happily, and soon she was running with them, her face glowing with joy. For the first time, Daniel saw her playing freely like a normal child. His heart swelled with pride, but not everyone felt the same. A woman nearby whispered to her friend, "Look at that alien playing with our children. What if she hurts them?" Daniel heard but stayed silent. He knew only time could change such hearts. Lyra's secret resolve. That night, Lyra sat by the window of their small home looking at the stars. Daniel sat beside her. "Do you miss your people?" he asked softly. Lyra's eyes filled with sadness. She whispered something in her language, words Daniel could not understand, but he saw the pain in her face. He put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You are not alone anymore. You have a new home and a new family. I promise to protect you." Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Then she spoke one clear word she had learned well. "Protect." Daniel nodded. "Yes, I will protect you." But deep inside, Lyra was already making her own silent promise. She thought of the kindness Daniel had shown her, of the laughter she had shared with the children, of the new life she had been given. She wanted to do more than just receive protection. She wanted to protect him. She wanted to protect this world. In her small heart, a seed of courage began to grow. Training in secret over the next months, Daniel sometimes noticed Lyra slipping away into quiet corners of the colony. She would return later, her face calm but her clothes a little dusty. One evening, he followed her quietly. To his surprise, he found her practicing alone near the edge of the forest. She was trying to control the faint glow of her hands, moving them slowly as if shaping light. Each time she concentrated, a soft shimmer appeared in the air. Daniel did not interrupt. He only watched from the shadows, realizing she was training herself. She wanted to grow stronger. When she finally noticed him, she looked guilty, afraid. He would scold her, but Daniel only walked over and smiled. "You're learning to understand yourself, that's good. Just remember, you don't have to carry everything alone." Lyra's lips trembled, but she nodded. She whispered softly, "Strong, for family." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. This small alien child, once broken and afraid, was already thinking not of herself but of others. A quiet night of stars. One clear night, Daniel took Lyra outside the colony. They lay on a hill looking up at the endless stars. "Those lights," Daniel said, pointing upward, "are other worlds. Some are far, some are near. Each one has its own people, its own stories." Lyra listened quietly. Her glowing eyes reflected the starlight. Daniel added, "Earth, my homeworld, is one of those lights. One day I'll take you there. You'll see oceans, forests, cities filled with people. You'll see what it means to be human." Lyra turned to him and whispered, "Home. Earth." "Yes," Daniel said warmly. "Earth can be your home too." For the first time, Lyra smiled fully, without fear. But as they lay under the stars, far away in the dark of space, shadows were already moving. The same raiders who had destroyed her people had not disappeared. They were hunting again, and soon their path would cross with Earth's colonies. Lyra did not know it yet, but her new home would one day need her more than anyone could imagine, and when that day came, she was determined not to be the helpless girl Daniel had found in the ruins. She would be ready. She would be a protector. Life on the colony slowly grew brighter for Lyra. She was no longer the silent, fearful child Daniel had found in the ruins. She was learning human ways, laughing more, and even playing with other children. People who once looked at her with suspicion were beginning to see her as part of the community. Daniel often felt proud watching her grow. But deep inside, he worried. He knew the galaxy was not safe. Somewhere out there, dangers always moved in the dark, and Lyra's past was not something that could stay hidden forever. News of danger. The colony's routine was broken one morning when alarms echoed through the streets. People rushed outside, looking to the sky. Ships of the defense fleet had returned, and their damaged hulls told a story before the officers even spoke. "Pirates," a soldier announced grimly. "The raiders who destroyed outposts in the outer sectors are close to our systems. They may strike here next." Daniel's face hardened. He had heard of these raiders before. Merciless groups who attacked colonies, stole resources, and left nothing but ashes. They were the same kind who had destroyed Lyra's people. Lyra, standing beside him, heard the word raiders. Her eyes darkened. She did not fully understand the announcement, but she felt the fear in people's voices. She tugged Daniel's sleeve and whispered, "Danger." Daniel knelt to meet her gaze. "Yes, but we'll be ready. You're safe with me." But Lyra shook her head. Her voice was soft but firm. "Not safe. Fight." Daniel froze. He looked at her, this small child with glowing eyes, and felt both worry and admiration. She had survived once, and now she wanted to stand against the same danger. "No, Lyra," he said gently. "You've been through enough. I won't let you risk yourself." But Lyra lowered her eyes and whispered, "Family. Protect." The words pierced Daniel's heart. Fear of losing her. That night, Daniel could not sleep. He sat at the table, staring at old records of pirate attacks, his mind heavy. Lyra had already lost her people. He could not bear the thought of losing her too. He remembered how small she had been when he found her. He remembered the tears on her face, the way she had whispered, guardian that first night by the fire. He had promised to protect her. Now, she wanted to protect him, but she was just a child. Could he let her face such danger? As he sat lost in thought, Lyra quietly entered the room. She placed her small glowing hand on his arm. "Daniel," she said softly, her voice steadier than he expected. "No fear." He looked into her eyes. They were filled with something beyond her years, a determination born from loss and kindness. He sighed. "Lyra, you're brave, braver than most, but bravery doesn't mean I can let you fight." Lyra thought for a moment, then pointed at herself. "Strong. Learn." Daniel realized she had been training secretly all along. The glow in her hands, the calm way she spoke of danger. It all showed she had been preparing. He wanted to refuse. But deep in his heart, he knew there was no stopping her spirit. A new resolve over the next days, the colony prepared for possible attack. Defense towers were activated, ships were armed, and soldiers trained in the fields. Lyra watched everything carefully. She followed Daniel as he worked with engineers to secure the settlement. She asked questions in broken human words. "Ship? Strong? Gun? Safe?" Daniel noticed her interest, but still tried to keep her away from real danger. Yet Lyra was quick to learn. She studied human tactics, memorized maps, and even practiced with a small wooden staff Daniel gave her to train coordination. At night, when others rested, Lyra would stand outside, staring at the stars. Daniel often joined her. "What are you thinking?" he asked one evening. She whispered, "Stars. Dark comes. Must shine." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "You already shine, Lyra. More than you know. The attack begins." It happened, sooner than expected. One morning, the sky above the colony filled with shadows. Pirate ships broke through the atmosphere, their engines roaring like thunder. Alarms screamed, and people rushed for shelter. Daniel grabbed Lyra's hand. "Stay. With me." Soldiers opened fire, defense cannons blazed, and the colony shook under the attack. Raiders in armored suits landed near the fields, their weapons flashing. Lyra's eyes widened at the sight. Memories of her destroyed home rushed back. But this time, she did not hide. She stood firm, holding Daniel's arm. "Fight," she whispered, again. Daniel pulled her toward safety. "No, Lyra, this is not your battle." But as a group of raiders charged toward fleeing civilians, something inside Lyra changed. She broke free from Daniel's grip and ran forward. "Lyra!" Daniel shouted, terrified. The hidden power. The raiders aimed their weapons at the people. But before they could fire, Lyra raised her small hands. A burst of light exploded from her palms, forming a shield of glowing energy. The weapon's blasts hit the shield and scattered harmlessly. Everyone froze in shock. Raiders, civilians, even Daniel. Lyra stood there, trembling but unbroken, her eyes shining brighter than ever. She shouted one word, loud and clear: "Stop, Fa." Raiders hesitated, confused by the sudden force. Then Lyra pushed forward and the shield expanded, knocking them off their feet. Civilians gasped, staring at the small alien girl who had just saved them. Soldiers quickly moved in, driving the raiders back. Daniel rushed to Lyra's side, kneeling beside her. "Lyra, how?" She looked at him, her face pale but steady. "Strong. Protect." Daniel's heart was torn. He wanted to hug her, to tell her never to do such a thing again. But at the same time, pride filled his chest. She was not the helpless child he had once found. She was something more. Respect earned. After the battle, the raiders retreated for the moment, regrouping, in orbit. The colony was shaken but still standing. People whispered about what they had seen. The alien girl who had once been feared was now their savior. Children looked at her with admiration, and soldiers nodded with respect. One officer said to Daniel, "Your daughter, she may be young, but she has power. She could be the key to defending us." Daniel placed a protective arm around Lyra. "She's still a child, don't forget that." But deep inside, Even he knew things had changed. Lyra was no longer just his adopted daughter. She was becoming something greater, something the whole colony would look to in times of danger. That night, Daniel sat with her under the stars again. He spoke softly. "Lyra, I don't want you to risk yourself, but I can't deny what you did. You saved lives today." Lyra leaned against him, tired but proud. She whispered, "Family safe, people safe, Lyra happy." Daniel closed his eyes, torn between fear and pride. He knew the pirates would return, stronger than before. And when they did, Lyra would not stand aside. She was ready to fight for her new home. She was ready to become a protector. The colony was alive with preparation. After the first attack, every human and alien resident understood the danger. Ships patrolled the skies, soldiers trained in the fields, and engineers reinforced every structure. But among them, Lyra moved quietly, her eyes filled with determination. She had discovered her strength, and now she wanted to use it to protect her new home. Daniel watched her, sometimes with pride, sometimes with fear. He had raised her from a fragile, frightened child to a young girl with courage and power. Yet, every day he feared losing her. Training with the Defenders, Lyra began training alongside the colony's defenders. She learned quickly, absorbing strategies, listening to commands, and testing her abilities. Her small hands could form protective shields, manipulate energy, and even sense danger before it came. At first, soldiers were hesitant. Many had never seen an alien child fight in this way. But when Lyra blocked a simulated blast that would have hit a soldier during practice, they began to take notice. "Impressive," said Sergeant Kellen, a veteran of many battles. "She's fast and smart. Not what I expected from a child." Lyra smiled softly. "Learn, protect," she said simply. Daniel watched quietly. She was more than he had imagined. She was becoming a true protector, not just of him, but of everyone in the colony. First mission together. The first real mission came sooner than expected. Scouts reported raiders approaching a nearby outpost, a small settlement that was lightly defended. Daniel and Lyra were sent with a squad of soldiers to reinforce it. Lyra's excitement was mixed with tension. She had trained, but this was real. As they approached the outpost in a transport ship, she held Daniel's hand briefly. "Daniel, together?" she asked. "Together," he answered, squeezing her hand. When they landed, the outpost was calm, but the sensors picked up movement. Shadows flickered in the distance. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Her hands glowed faintly. "Lyra, stay close," Daniel said. She nodded, but her heart told her she needed to act. She was not just a child anymore. She was a protector. Battle at the outpost. The raiders attacked without warning. Their ships landed, and armored figures charged with energy weapons raised. Civilians screamed and ran for cover. Lyra did not hesitate. She raised her hands, forming a glowing shield that spread across the entrance. The raiders' blasts bounced, harmlessly off the energy. Daniel and the soldiers advanced, inspired by her courage. Lyra moved among them, her small frame agile, her powers precise. She blocked attacks, guided soldiers away from danger, and even redirected some energy back toward the raiders. "Stay behind me," she shouted at a group of civilians hiding near a storage unit. Her voice, though soft, carried authority. Daniel watched, amazed. She was no longer just his daughter. She was a leader, guiding others with confidence beyond her years. Earning respect after the skirmish, the raiders retreated, leaving the outpost safe. Soldiers and civilians alike gathered around Lyra. "Your powers, your courage, you saved us all," Sergeant Kellen said. "You're incredible." Lyra looked down shyly, but her cheeks glowed faintly. "Protect family, people," she said. Daniel stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're growing into someone. Amazing, Lyra. But always remember, protecting others doesn't mean you carry the world alone." The girl nodded. She understood, even if she could not explain in words. She was learning something humans had known for generations. Courage was not just about strength, but about heart, compassion, and responsibility. Preparing for the final battle back at the colony, Daniel and the leaders prepared for the raiders' main strike. Reports showed the enemy fleet growing, stronger than ever. Lyra trained harder than anyone. She practiced forming shields, moving objects with energy, sensing danger, and even communicating silently with Daniel during simulations. She wanted to be ready, not just for herself but for the people she had come to love. One evening she stood on the highest tower of the colony, looking at the horizon. The sky was quiet, but her instincts told her danger was coming. She whispered to herself, "Lyra, ready, protect." Daniel found her there. "You're determined," he said softly. "I must," she replied. "Family, colony, safe." Daniel nodded. He realized she was no longer a child who needed protecting. She was becoming a shield, a guide, and a protector of all. Courage beyond fear. When the raider fleet finally arrived, the colony was ready. Ships launched, defense cannons fired, and the sky erupted with light. Lyra stood among the soldiers, her hands glowing brightly. The raiders focused on breaking through the defenses, but Lyra moved swiftly, intercepting energy blasts, shielding soldiers, and creating paths for civilians to escape danger. At one point, a group of raiders broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for a supply depot filled with civilians. Lyra ran ahead, forming a dome of light that blocked their path. "Stop!" she shouted. Her voice carried power, and for a moment the raiders hesitated. Daniel watched from behind the line of soldiers. Pride and fear warred in his heart. She was so young, yet so brave. The soldiers quickly surrounded the raiders, capturing them or forcing them to retreat. Lyra's energy shield held firm until the threat was gone. When the last enemy ship left the sky, cheers erupted from the colony. Soldiers lifted Lyra onto their shoulders, praising her bravery. She blushed, embarrassed but proud. A protector is born after the battle. Daniel knelt beside Lyra. "You've done more than anyone expected. You've protected the colony, the people, even me." Lyra smiled softly, her glowing hands dimming. "Protect, must, keep trying," she whispered. Daniel hugged her tightly. "Yes, and we will face whatever comes next together." The people of the colony gathered around them. They had seen the alien girl who had once been feared, now leading and protecting. Children looked up to her. Adults nodded in respect. She had earned her place not just as Daniel's adopted daughter, but as a true protector of the colony. The oath. That night, Lyra stood on the tower again, looking at the stars. She raised her hands, feeling the faint glow of energy within her. "I will protect," she whispered. "Family, people, home. Nothing will fall while I stand." Daniel joined her silently. He did not speak. He only knew this moment mattered. This small girl, once alone and scared, had grown into a protector, and the world would remember her courage. The stars above reflected her determination, shining brightly against the darkness. She had found her place, her purpose, and her strength. Lyra had risen. She was no longer just a survivor. She was a guardian, a shield for the helpless and a light in the dark. And Daniel, watching her, knew that the battles to come would test them both. But he also knew that Lyra was ready. The rise of the protector had begun. The colony had never been as quiet as that morning. Even after months of preparation, the tension in the air was thick. Reports from scouts showed the raider fleet approaching faster and in larger numbers than ever. Their ships glinted in the rising sun, like dark shadows crossing the sky. Daniel stood on the command platform, his eyes scanning the horizon. Beside him, Lyra's glowing hands flickered faintly. She had not slept much the night before, her mind focused on the coming battle. "Daniel," she said softly, "ready?" He placed a hand on her small shoulder. "I'm ready because you're ready. But remember, we stick together." Lyra nodded. Her silver hair shimmered in the sunlight, and her eyes held a determined fire. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for everything she had learned to love. The battle begins as the raiders descended. The colony's defenses roared to life. Cannons fired, shields sparked, and human ships launched into the sky. The first wave of raiders tried to break through the outer perimeter. Lyra did not hesitate. She raised her hands, creating a massive dome of shimmering energy over the central settlement. Blasts from enemy weapons bounced harmlessly off the glowing shield. Daniel moved alongside soldiers, coordinating defenses, but his eyes never left Lyra. She moved with grace and precision, a small figure radiating strength and courage. "Keep the civilians safe," Lyra shouted, her voice carrying far beyond her size. Energy streams shot from her hands, forming barriers and guiding people to safe zones. The raiders were relentless, but they had not anticipated her power. Every time they tried to breach the shield, they were pushed back. Lyra's control over her abilities was now complete. She was a force of nature, protecting everyone with unwavering focus, protecting the colony. Despite her small size, Lyra became the center of the battle. Soldiers took courage from her presence. Civilians began to believe that safety was possible, even in the midst of chaos. At one point, a group of raiders broke through a sidewall, aiming for a supply depot filled with essential goods. Lyra dashed forward faster than anyone could follow and raised her hands. A glowing barrier enveloped the depot just in time. Daniel shouted from behind, "Lyra, be careful." "I am careful," she replied, her voice firm. "Protect." The raiders tried to force their way through, but her energy flared stronger than ever, pushing them back. Each movement was precise, guided not only by her strength but by her instinct to protect. Even when exhaustion began to show on her small frame, Lyra never stopped. She formed shields, lifted debris, and guided civilians to safety. Every action was deliberate, every movement meaningful. Courage inspires. By midday, the raiders were beginning to retreat, confused by the unexpected resistance. The humans and Lyra had coordinated perfectly. Soldiers moved where she could not, and civilians were safe under her guidance. Daniel watched from the command platform, amazed. "She's extraordinary," he whispered. Nearby, Sergeant Kellen nodded. "She isn't just extraordinary. She's inspiring. Everyone is following her lead." Children in the colony watched from safe shelters, eyes wide. They had seen fear. They had seen destruction, but now they saw courage embodied in a small alien girl. Lyra moved among them like a beacon of hope. Each time a soldier faltered, she encouraged them. Each time a civilian panicked, she guided them. Her strength was not only in her powers, but in her heart. The turning point. The raiders regrouped, preparing for a final strike. Their leader, towering figure in black armor, unleashed a massive weapon aimed at the colony's central tower. Lyra's eyes widened, but she did not hesitate. She raised both hands, summoning the full force of her energy. The sky around her shimmered, and a massive shield expanded outward, absorbing the incoming blast. Daniel ran to her side. "Lyra, you can't hold it alone." "I can," she shouted, her voice steady. "Protect." Her energy flared, pushing back not only the weapon but the raider forces near the tower. Soldiers followed her lead, coordinating attacks with precision. Civilians cheered from safe zones. In that moment, Lyra became more than just a girl. She became the shield of the colony, the guardian who stood between life and destruction. Victory. After hours of intense battle, the raiders finally retreated. Their ships vanished into the distance, leaving the colony bruised but intact. Exhausted, Lyra sank to her knees. Daniel rushed to her side, holding her gently. "You did it, Lyra. You saved everyone." Her glowing hands dimmed as she leaned against him. "Family, people, safe," she whispered, a tired but proud smile on her face. The colonists slowly emerged from shelters, looking at her with admiration. They gathered around, cheering, hugging each other, and praising her bravery. Even the soldiers, hardened by years of conflict, bowed their heads in respect. Lyra, once a lost alien child, had become the protector of all. Recognition. That evening, a ceremony was held in the colony's central plaza. Lyra stood beside Daniel as leaders and civilians honored her courage. They spoke of her bravery, her skill, and her heart. Daniel watched silently, tears in his eyes. He remembered the scared little girl he had found among ruins, trembling and alone. Now she stood tall, glowing with strength, a protector not only of humans, but of the principles he had always believed in: courage, compassion, and hope. Today, one leader said, we honor Lyra, who showed that strength comes not from size but from heart. She is a guardian of Earth, a protector of all who call it home. Lyra nodded, shy but proud. She raised her hands slightly, letting them glow faintly. The crowd cheered louder. Daniel whispered to her, "You've become more than I could ever imagine." Lyra smiled softly. "Protect, always." The protector's promise. Later that night, Daniel and Lyra sat outside, looking at the stars. The battle was over, but the memory of danger lingered. "You've done so much, Lyra," Daniel said. "Are you sure you're ready to keep protecting everyone?" Lyra turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly in the starlight. "Yes, family, people, home. Lyra, always protect." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "I once saved your life, little one. Now, you've saved all of us." Lyra smiled softly. She felt the truth of his words. She had been adopted as a child, but she had grown into something greater, a protector, a guide, a light in dark times. "I will always try," she whispered. "No fear. Only protect." A new dawn. The colony began rebuilding after the attack. Life slowly returned to normal, but everyone knew that Lyra would always be there. The children looked up to her. Soldiers followed her lead. Civilians found courage in her presence. And in the quiet moments, Daniel would see her standing on the hills, gazing at the stars. She no longer feared the galaxy. She had faced it, fought for it, and had grown strong. Lyra's journey had begun as a lost alien, child found among ruins and despair. She had been adopted by a human, nurtured and guided. And now she had fulfilled a destiny she did not yet fully understand. She had become a protector, a dedicated guardian of Earth, ready to face whatever darkness might come next. And Daniel knew, as he watched her against the starlit sky, that she would continue to inspire courage and hope wherever she went. Lyra had risen, not just for herself, but for humanity. And the galaxy would remember her light.